Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I am your host, Dr. Steve, and this is Know Your Rights. Just before the break, we were talking about the Bundy case and the lead investigator named Larry Wooten that basically broke his silence on what he found in his investigation over the travesty at the Bundy Ranch and against the federal government and the corruption um, and the cover up that transpired to try to steal land and property from Americans and lock these people up and try to silence them. So what we're going to do now is we're going to listen to Representative Matthew Shea. He is from the state of Washington, and he's from the 4th District. And he's about to read to you an email that was sent to him along with the Department of Justice um, and many other members of Congress. And I'm just going to let it speak for itself because this is going to shock you, infuriate you, um, and scare you all at the same time. Here you go.
Important to the American people, and it's this. The people of this state, and this comes from Washington State's Public Records Act, the people of this state do not yield their sovereignty to the agencies that serve them. The people in delegating authority do not give their public servants the right to decide what is good for the people to know and what is not good for them to know. People insist on remaining informed so that they may maintain control over the instruments that they have created. And that ultimately is the crux of what I am about to talk about today, since it does involve the Bureau of Land Management. Specifically here in Washington State, the Bureau of Land Management has approximately 435,000 acres under its management. Also, it has many interactions with some of our state agencies and also obviously our citizens here in Washington State. One of the very important things to me is that when you are a servant of the government, and as we have seen, a servant of the people, as we have seen in recent news stories, you are held to a higher standard because you are a servant of the people, not a servant of the government. That's an important point for what I'm about to talk about. The interesting thing that I have seen over the years is that there has been a flipping of that, where a lot of people that are in the governing authorities have felt like they don't serve the people serve them, and it's just not that way. And so today I would like to break some information that I have obtained. It is a correspondence between Special Agent Larry C. Wooten to Andrew D. Goldsmith, who's the Associate Deputy Attorney General of the United States of America. And recently we've heard, and you've reported on rumors, that there has been a move to dismiss the case against the Bundys down in Nevada. And what I'm about to tell you is probably one of the reasons why. And it has to do with the unethical, potentially illegal behavior that was highlighted by Special Agent Wooten as a whistleblower in an email that, or it looks like an email, that we have confirmed the veracity of. And I want to just give you a little bit of a taste, reading from this email, of what Special Agent Wooten brought up as problems we found in the Bureau of Land Management, specifically in regards to the investigation of the Bundy family. Quote, I routinely observed, and the investigation revealed a widespread pattern of bad judgment, lack of discipline, incredible bias, unprofessionalism and misconduct, as well as likely policy, ethical, and legal violations among senior and supervisory staff at the BLM's Office of Law Enforcement and Security. When I reported these issues, my supervisors seemed generally unsurprised and uninterested, and was dismissive and seemed unconcerned. Now, I want to set the stage a little bit here. Apparently, Special Agent Wooten was the case agent or the lead investigator for this case. Here's another quote from him. The longer the investigation went on, the more extremely unprofessional, familiar, racy, vulgar, and bias-filled actions, open comments, and inappropriate electronic communications I was made aware of or I personally witnessed, end quote. He then continues, quote, The ridiculousness of the conduct, unprofessional, amateurish, carnival atmosphere, openly made statements, and electronic communications tended to mitigate the defendant's culpability and cast a shadow of doubt, of inexcusable bias, unprofessionalism, and embarrassment on our agency. End quote. This is where it gets very incredible, because Special Agent Wooten brings up some very serious allegations against his own agency, and I want to kind of highlight what those are, and then I would like to go through what specifically is written in this correspondence. First, Special Agent Wooten says that there was the treatment of the Bundys in a manner that suggested they wanted to see a couple of members of the Bundy family either dead or harmed. And I want to be very specific about what he said about that in here. The second thing that's brought up is that there was an apparent withholding of exculpatory evidence that Mr. Wooten had brought to the attention of his supervisors. Next was that there was allegations of sexual misconduct inside the BLM's law enforcement arm, and that also there were indeed at Bundy Ranch snipers that had been deployed. Now, it's interesting because I personally have been witnessing the news reports that have been out there, some of the things you've been breaking, that snipers were in fact maybe not there, and that was the government's position in a previous hearing. This document very clearly is the smoking gun, not only in this case, but I believe an indictment of BLM itself, and maybe even potentially the prosecutors that are involved in this case. And I want to read again some of the things that are in here, because some of it is so outrageous that I will be sending a letter very specifically to Congress. We'll be sending a letter to Secretary Zinke and the Trump administration so that they can take the appropriate action and prosecute the bad actors for some of the behavior that has occurred inside the BLM. I also want to be very specific that the Trump administration is probably going to be blindsided by this, as I was blindsided by this information coming to me. And I believe that they have been doing the right thing when they have been given the facts, and I have every confidence the Trump administration is going to do the right thing in this case to bring those to justice that have either violated the letter of the law or the spirit of the law or policies internal to BLM. So let me go down a couple of these things that are in this correspondence, again from Special Agent Wooten. Quote, "The misconduct caused considerable disruption in the workplace, was discriminatory, harassing, and showed clear prejudice against the defendants, their supporters, and Mormons. Oftentimes, the misconduct centered on being sexually inappropriate, profanity, appearance/body shaming, and likely violated privacy and civil rights." Next, he says, extremely biased and degrading flyers were also openly displayed and passed around the office. A booking photo of Cliven Bundy was and is inappropriately, openly, prominently, and proudly displayed in the office of a potential trial witness and my supervisor, and an altered, degrading suspect photos were put in the office presentation by his supervisor. End quote. The next quote is, quote, "My supervisor even instigated the unprofessional monitoring of jail calls between defendants and their wives without prosecutor or FBI consent for the apparent purpose of making fun of the post-arrest telephone calls between Idaho defendants/FBI targets," end quote. That is an extraordinary statement, that they are admitting what seems to be a very clear violation of, if not policy, the spirit or letter of the law. I also find it very interesting as well that they were putting things up in the office when some of those members of that office had to testify. I think there are some very clear rules that say you should not do that for many different reasons.
We're going to break right there, folks. We're coming up on the break. You are not going to want to go anywhere because you haven't even heard anything yet. He is just getting started. Again, you're going to be shocked and terrified at the same time with what this man is about to read to you that this lead investigator uncovered during his investigation. I am Dr. Steve. This is Know Your Rights. We'll be back in a moment. Don't go anywhere.